Okay, everybody, welcome to our fifth series of our Broadband Technical Assistance webinar series. This one's on sustaining success. It's about grant management and reporting requirements. This webinar will be recorded, so if you do not want your video and recording, please feel free to turn off your camera. Please be sure to mute your mic. There will be time for Q&A at the end and also after each presentation. Also, feel free to drop any questions in the chat throughout. So let's go ahead and get started. Start out, even though this is mostly Generation West Virginia, we are a statewide nonprofit that's mostly remote or almost fully remote. We do focus on equipping young West Virginians with key skills and career opportunities, making sure that they have the ability to thrive here in our mountain state. We do this through our Career Connector, our fellowship, our New Force program, and also our broadband program as well. So why broadband? Broadband is essential for closing the digital divide. It's about providing access to education, jobs, healthcare, and also economic growth, which in the end creates a stronger, more connected, and prosperous future for us all. In West Virginia, we do have significant lack of broadband infrastructure. 29.5% of West Virginia households lack fixed broadband availability. This can be due to low population density and our challenging terrain, but also our poor return on investments for private businesses as well. We also work in digital adoption. So once access is achieved, how do our residents connect to the online world? 19% of the population report that they are not using the internet, and 36.9% report not using a PC or a tablet. Affordability, lack of knowledge on how to use online resources, fear, and lack of devices and internet connection all present challenges to our West Virginia residents with adoption. And then what we specifically do here at Generation West Virginia for broadband, we do two parts. We do broadband infrastructure and digital access and adoption. So with infrastructure, we do offer wraparound technical assistance. So this is pro bono engineering, project development, and grant writing, but also legal and partnership development as well. We work with building and developing partnerships with local governments, state offices, communities, and service providers. So far, we've been able to secure over 45 million in state and federal funds, and we've leveraged about 23 million in matching funds to support new fiber construction, which has connected over 30,498 homes across West Virginia, specifically in 15 counties. When it comes to our digital access and adoption planning, we do research and planning. So last year, we actually did 18 county level digital equity plans. These were done with community-based planning processes and community meetings as well. Also that wraparound technical assistance. So we also do grant writing, subject expertise, project development, and overall helping get grants secured. And then finally, we do planning workshops, webinars like this, and local steering committees that we meet with on a monthly and a quarterly schedule as well. So let's go ahead and go to our speaker. So our speaker is Candice. Candice is the Chief Financial Officer of Generation West Virginia. She lives in the New River Gorge area. Her areas of expertise include policy creation and implementation, grants compliance, and financial analysis and projection. Candice graduated from West Virginia University Institute of Technology with a bachelor's degree in business management and accounting, as well as a certificate in fraud examination. She also is a certified public accountant, and she's been serving as CFO of GWV since March of 2023. So I'm going to hand it over to Candice.
Thank you, Lucas. It is super excited to be rounding out this webinar series with y'all today. I've been able to attend a lot of the previous sessions, and it's been an awesome amount of information. So I am very honored to have been selected to do the series finale today. So our information is going to be focusing on maximizing your grant success. So that's going to be financial tracking, compliance, and impact. So let's go next. Okay, so here's our agenda today. So we're going to cover 5 key areas as we go through. So first, we're going to start with financial compliance. So that is what it means to be audit ready and proactive. Then we'll switch to financial grant reporting, and that's how to maintain clarity across all of your grants, keeping all of the little details straight. Reporting requirements, that's keeping on top of your deadlines and grant expectations. Then we will go into measuring impact, which is how you communicate your value to your current and prospective funders. And then we're going to round out the discussion with project sustainability. So that's how you plan ahead to continue the work beyond the life of a grant. So my hope is by the end of this session, you're able to leave with some action items that you can take back to strengthen your organization's financial infrastructure and boost funding success. So whether you're writing a grant, working in a program, or a finance person like me, I hope some of these tools will help you make sure that your work is fundable, that it's measurable, and it's sustainable. All right. So let's start with compliance. May not sound exciting, but it is absolutely essential. When you think of compliance, especially from a financial standpoint, think of it as the financial foundation that makes sure that funders can trust you with the money that they give you and the stuff that they're asking you to do. And so, with compliance being the foundation of that foundation, that's your financial policies. So your policies shouldn't just be initially created and then left to sit on a virtual or literal shelf to collect dust. They should be living documents and you should be reviewing them annually, if not updating them annually. And it should be a part of how your team operates every day, whether directly or indirectly. So, as you're thinking about your policies and financial compliance, here are some questions that you can ask yourself when you're reviewing things. When's the last time we looked at our travel reimbursement policy? Do we have clear procedures for purchase approvals? Or is this an area where we get a lot of confusion and questions? Also, are we aligned with uniform guidance for federal grants? Has anything changed in the guidance since we last reviewed our policy? So, lastly, with compliance and your financial policies, make this a part of your organizational culture. That means when you onboard new staff, you do so with some finance policy training added in so that they know what expectations are from day one. You hold annual refreshers, which we do at Generation West Virginia. And then also, really importantly, make sure your leadership leads by example. You know, when leadership acts in a compliant manner, it gives everybody else permission to do so. All right, next. So continuing on the compliance train. So documenting your processes is critical. If you do not document your processes, such as travel approvals, reimbursements, or how often you're doing reconciliations, those processes do not exist in the eyes of your auditor. Similar to the phrase, pics or it didn't happen. You got to have it somewhere. You have to have proof of it. It's essential that every transaction that posts to your books, especially if it's funded by a grant, it needs to be backed by evidence and it needs to fall within the allowable costs per your grant agreement. Regular reviews during your reporting cycles can be a great way to do that ongoing monitoring and catch anything early. Also, remember record retention. It's not enough to just get through the award and be like, okay, we're done. We've spent the money. Let's forget about this. Keeping your financial records is usually a requirement for your funders. It could be anywhere from 3 to 7 years, depending on the source. So make sure you're aware of those requirements. So if we have processes in place to systematically house everything, we don't have to worry about hunting things down. And with compliance, it would absolutely be an oversimplification to say it's just about passing an audit. Compliance is much more than that. Compliance is about being good stewards of the resources that are entrusted to us. If we take care of the money that's given to us, chances are somebody else is going to give us more money in the future. So, simply put, good record keeping today saves you stress tomorrow. Or one of my favorite ways to put it, if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. All right, next. All right, so let's talk about grant tracking. So let's say you're juggling 10 different grants, and that's like it's great. You could have 10, 15, 20 grants, each with different timelines, different allowable expenses, and different reporting requirements. Without any sort of tracking system in place, things will definitely slip through the cracks. And that's when you risk being out of compliance with a funder, which is absolutely something you want to avoid at all costs. Instead, create a master tracking system. It does not have to be fancy. It can be a shared spreadsheet, it could be a grant or project management tool. The tool doesn't matter as much as how you use it. Essentially, some of the baseline information you want to capture from every award is the grant name, your start and end dates, the award amount, some sort of spend monitoring. Some people would just want to see dollar amount remaining or percentage used, and reporting deadlines. You want to have an easy snapshot to monitor your allowable costs and your burn rate. Are you spending these funds too quickly or too slowly? Another avenue of successful grant tracking I highly recommend is to meet monthly with your finance and programmatic teams to make sure you're aligned on planned spend, project activities, and discussing and catching issues early. A proactive approach builds trust with your funders and, very importantly, reduces stress for your team. Next. All right. So every dollar amount you spend should be traceable. It's not enough to know where the money went. You need to prove how the funds were spent. That means storing your receipts, invoices, contracts, and payroll allocations. If you're billing salary to a grant, you definitely need to keep clear timekeeping records and cost allocations. Be meticulous with documentation. You can do this by having centralized storage like Google Drive, Dropbox, or SharePoint to house those like basic items that you need to have for every grant. So your award letters, your budget justifications, and your supporting documentation. Because when the audit comes, and it will, you will thank yourself. You will see a theme. Stay ready, don't got to get ready. Be proactive now, save your team stress later. All right, so let's go on to reporting requirements. Okay, so on to reporting. Every funder has different requirements. You know, you may have 3 or 4 different federal grants from different federal agencies. Each of those agencies is going to have its own reporting requirements, its own portal, its own timelines, its own formats. Some want your financials monthly, others quarterly, others annually, everything in between. Some ask for detailed metrics on performance, other funders focus on stories. It can be a lot to keep track of, like I've mentioned previously. So the key is to make sure you read your grant agreements thoroughly and identify the people responsible for reporting components and assigning access to any portals early in the award cycle. You hear the word early and proactive everywhere in this presentation. All right, next. Okay, so never underestimate the importance of submitting your reports on time and with clear language. Submitting late or vague reports can hurt your credibility, and you can put your award out of compliance, especially with late reports. You want to avoid that at all costs. So track your due dates using a shared calendar and meet regularly to make sure reports are being drafted, reviewed, and submitted on time. Again, is the theme of my talk here today. Prepare early and minimize future stress and scrambling. If you have any budget deviations or scope of work changes, make sure you document them thoroughly and seek approval when required. Do not assume that because you haven't heard from a funder and on an update that, they're okay with things. Silence does not equal consent here. Even if funders don't ask for it explicitly, they do appreciate a well-prepared report that demonstrates your stewardship and your progress towards your goals. Think of your report as a chance to prove your impact and position your organization for future funding. It's your chance to prove you're doing what you said you would on that proposal that you worked so hard on maybe months or a year ago. All right, next. So that gets into, we're starting to tell the story of the funds that we're given, and, we're starting to measure the impact. So impact measurement, it is absolutely one of the most important parts of grant management. It's where your data meets your storytelling, where finance meets your mission. Funders want to know their dollars made a difference. That means pairing your metrics like homes connected or workshops hosted with real life stories showing your impact. So, to accomplish this, make sure that finance, programmatic staff, and communications teams communicate clearly. A well run project with great outcomes can go unnoticed if you don't tell your story effectively. Data without context can be confusing. Why are these numbers here? What's the story? What's the story behind the metric? And stories without any backing data can seem anecdotal. You need both. So, when we're talking about impact measurement, we're talking about quantitative versus qualitative data. So, quantitative, your numbers and your metrics, and your qualitative is your stories and experiences. So, let's head to the next slide and give some more breakdown on the difference between qualitative and quantitative data with some examples. So, quantitative data, again, this is a numerical measurement that you can do. So, it's people trained, dollars leveraged, workshops held. It's something that you can assign a number to and back that up. Qualitative information, that shows the human side of your work. It can be photos from a community training event. It can be the story of a grandparent that did their first successful video call to the grandbabies that live far away. Together, both pieces of data are very powerful tools for reporting and for fundraising. Funders want to see the real world change your programs are creating. So, next, while we're talking about impact, we're getting into sustainability, so let's go to the next slide and talk about project sustainability. We're planning for the future. We do that a lot, don't we? We've been planning for the future this entire presentation. So, sustainability, guess what? Be proactive about it. It starts on day one. Don't wait until the end of a grant period to think about what is coming next. So, just to kind of get the conversation going, ask yourself questions such as, what happens when this grant ends? Did we solve all the world's problems in a singular grant period? Wonderful if you can, but for a lot of us, the work is going to continue past an award period. What does that look like? Are there additional grants we can apply for to sustain the work? Can we make a partnership with a local government, another nonprofit, or an employer? Is there overlap there? Can we introduce earned income for part of this work? So again, as I have said this entire way through, the more proactive you are in all aspects of grant management, the more attractive you are to funders who want to invest in a long-term impact. So build conversations about sustainability into your programmatic and leadership meetings. Build it into your proposals if you can. Be ready to show that not only your project works, that it can last beyond, one particular award. All right. Wow. That is my presentation. Do I have any questions from the Generation West Virginia Gallery? Hi, Tracy.
Yeah, I have a question about what if you get to the point in your grant and you can see that you're going to be underspent for the grant monies. And maybe you can see like 6 to 8 months out that you're going to get to the end of this grant and have 30 or $40,000 left over. What kind of advice do you have of how to handle that situation?
Well, it's an awesome thing. It's great to hear like, oh, we're catching it 6 months ahead of time. Like that is the best case scenario. Like, so when you're doing, as Generation West Virginia does, we look at our burn rate monthly. So if you're catching proactively that you're going to have funding left over, one, it's a great way, potentially you can tell a funder, hey, guess what? We were so efficient in this. We thought it was going to cost $100,000, but it only cost $60,000 because they're so good at what we do. So be proactive. Are there other places that maybe you need to reallocate to? Are there places where you can do an expanded scope of work, like change what your goals are, change what your metrics are, or expand into different, complementary areas to do additional things in service of the award? Because the last thing we want to do is send money back. We don't want to do that. We want to utilize the funds that we have because every opportunity, you just kind of have to live like everyone is your last. So you want to suck every penny that you can out of an award. So again, being proactive with your funders and seeing what kind of flexibility you have to, maybe your grant only targeted 6 counties. Well, would it be okay for us to expand to 10 counties? Or maybe we were only working with a certain industry. Let's expand to another industry. Or, maybe we're offering living stipends. Can we extend that time period and give a longer on ramp or off ramp to individuals in our programs that may be having stipend income? It's kind of getting into those conversations of, you know, what are the next steps in service of this particular award or the particular work that we're doing?
I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind.
Of course, of course.
So one of the mysteries of grants that I've encountered is the idea of match and keeping up with match and knowing that you're going to have to come up with $10,000 for this particular grant. And what kind of things can I use for match? Can I use like in-kind of stuff? So I just wonder if you could speak a little bit about how you track match and any advice you might have on how creative you might be with match.
Match is match and indirect are a couple of those grant management terms that can be endlessly confusing. So match dollars. So let's break that down at its base. So I'm going to submit a proposal to an organization that requires match funding. So if I request $50,000 from a funder, they're going to say, you know what, you need to find an additional $10,000 of your own, whether from a different funder or program income, but you have to have some skin in the game. We're not just going to give you this money for free. You have a financial commitment as well. Um, it is very so in the federal landscape, there can be restrictions on what you can use as match. You can't use a federal award to match against a federal award unless you have special permission. Usually it's easy with federal awards when they give you money. Match can come from foundation support, earn income, a lot of different places. So one is kind of identifying where you're going to get that funding from. So it can be internally generated or externally generated. So if it's externally generated match income, say, we get $50,000 from the Department of Labor, and then another foundation says, well, we'll give you your $10,000 in match. Then it's relatively simple to track at that point. If we're just going to use all of this, $10,000 we got for match, lovely. What a wonderful world that is. It's very simple, cut and dry. Just track your expenses on both of your awards. If it is internally generated, it really depends on your internal financial processes. So are you using QuickBooks? Are you using Sage? Are you using spreadsheets? So, if you have an unsophisticated grant system or financial management system, it may be, which we've done, Generation West Virginia has absolutely done in the past, where you keep a spreadsheet and you identify, okay, this transaction on this date is being used for this award. And you just singularly list every transaction. And you can make sure, because you cannot double count. I can't use this, paper transaction for this award for match and for another award for match. So double counting, that's where financial compliance and grant management come in. You have to be very meticulous with what you do there. So again, it could be informal, such as a spreadsheet that tracks all of that stuff that you can then pivot and look at where your match is going to or coming from. Um, in QuickBooks, we also use customers. We've set up match customers so that we're able to segregate the information, especially for internally generated match. So for example, if it's program income or something like that, we can kind of earmark a transaction as match. So yeah, like I said, it just depends on the sophistication of your grant management system, but from a beginner to, a multi-million dollar nonprofit, there are ways to be able to track it. It's just cumbersome and confusing. All right. Any other questions? Okay, awesome. Well, before I turn it over to Lucas to wrap this up, thank you all for taking some time out of your day to talk about a subject that a lot of people, they would just rather it be somebody else's job. Like, please don't make me think about compliance. Please don't make me think about financial policy. But the more we get these ideas out and about for people, especially outside of the finance department, it helps to know the why. Why am I asking you to do your time card? Why am I asking for these reports? It becomes a lot more, it becomes a part of the culture, and it becomes a lot more understood. So yeah, thank you all. I'll turn it over to you, Lucas.
All right. Thank you so much, Candice. This presentation was amazing, and truly thank you for all you do for Generation West Virginia. I don't know what we would do without you, honestly. So final up in this presentation, just going to plug our broadband department again. If you have a project idea, we do help with grant writing assistance. We also help with development of projects, asset mapping, partnership development, budget planning, broadband access and adoption, and also helping getting the funding strategies and helping you guys secure your help. So if you're interested in broadband assistance, please head to our website at Generation West Virginia to find our wraparound technical assistance forms and also broadband and digital equity resources. So we did want to have a little bit of note on terminology. So the term digital equity has been used for many years to describe the goal of creating the conditions where all residents have equal access to online resources. While the definitions of this term do most accurately describe the work, due to policies set forth by the new administrations, we likely will see this word described as digital opportunity, digital or broadband adoption, or even closing the digital divide. But we just wanted to really let you guys know that the need is still there. It'll still remain, and it's still crucial that digital equity and broadband access initiatives continue to prioritize accessibility, affordability, and inclusivity for all, regardless of what the term is called. Next, so if you're interested in our broadband technical assistance, you can follow this QR code, or you also can head to our website. The American Connection Corps, which hosts me with Generation West Virginia, is currently looking for new members and potential host sites. So if you know anybody interested or you would like to be a host site, please head to americanconnectioncorps.com and you will find the applications for members and host sites. I highly recommend. It's an amazing program, and we're looking to expand here in West Virginia. And final up, here is all my contact information, Annie's contact information who couldn't be here today, and Candice's contact information as well. Also, there is a link to our GWV newsletter. Please subscribe to our newsletter if you want to keep up to date on all things we're doing at Generation West Virginia, but also things that are happening across the state as well. So that concludes our presentation today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.